Hello, my friends. And today I have the honor and privilege to talk to one of the most innovative, interesting, visionary marketers that I know, and that is Dana Malstaff. How you doing, Dana?
I like hanging out with you. You give the best compliments.
Well, it's absolutely true. And I always learn so much, not only just learn from you, I'm always inspired every time I talk to you. You're just doing some breakthrough thing. It's like, wow, wow, she is leading the way. And today we're going to talk about how we are using custom GPTs in our businesses. Very different ways, but
Mhm.
bold in its own way. And before we get immersed in this conversation, I want to remind you that our show is brought to you by SEMrush. SEMrush, this is probably the app I use most often, other than like Word, Excel, something like that. I use SEMrush all the time, not so much for keyword work, but just to get a general assessment of where a customer is positioned in their marketplace. And often I find they're wrong. So I can bring data from SEMrush. And this is a company I love because they've continued to innovate so much. They are pushing the boundaries, and I have saved thousands of dollars a year by using SEMrush and for tasks that I used to have to pay people before. So check out SEMrush. We're so delighted and honored to have them as a sponsor. So just before I pushed record, you were about to tell me that you had tried my MarkBot. So let's start there, and let's back up a second and talk about what is going on my side with custom GPT. So if you read my blog a couple months ago, I got an email from a guy, and the tagline of the memo, the title of the memo was "This will incur your wrath." And it was a guy that had created a MarkBot trained like on my blog posts and stuff. And at first I was a little, taken aback, but then I started thinking about it. And I started working on my own chatbot that is trained on my work. Um, and it really there were two reasons. Number one, I just came out with this book, How AI Changes Your Customers. And the way I end the book, I talk about there's a certain amount of fear embedded in AI because it's nipping at the heels of our skill sets and our careers. But at some point, you've got to let it go and get over the grieving and look at AI as a way to reimagine how big and bold you can be. And I think we're going to get to that when we talk to you about what you're doing too, Dana. And I'm a teacher, I'm a mentor, I'm a consultant. And this is a way to reimagine what I do and be able to touch maybe, who knows, thousands of people that that won't, they're not even, they haven't been able to talk to me, or they're too shy to talk to me, or whatever the reason, whatever the reason might be. So it's a way to reimagine myself in a bigger way. That's exciting to me. The second reason is I think back to the early days of content marketing. And what were we supposed to do? We're supposed to give away our content, give away our best ideas. And everybody thought that's crazy. Wait a minute. How are you going to make money off of this? But if we didn't give away our information, if we didn't give away our ideas, somebody else would. And so this is how we had to build our authority. This is how we had to build our brand. And certainly for me, it worked. And I see this new chatbot. It's called MarkBot. You can now find it on the front page of my website, which is businessesgrow.com. You can try it out for yourself. And this has been created, it's been informed by all of my books, all of my blog posts, speeches, workshops, basically every piece of content I've got in my files. And my friend Roxana in our Rise community, she took a look at it and she said, "This is an expert trained model." I like that characterization. I think that's what you can expect. And so I've had probably almost 100 people try it out now, and they absolutely love it. They're getting great results. Now, Dana, right before I pushed uh, I started to record the show. You were about to tell me about your experience with the MarkBot. I said, wait. Let's get into that in the show. So you tried it out.
I did. I did. Yeah, and I think one thing too that needs to be like the very beginning of the conversation as we're all starting to create bots, create GPTs, create all the, agents, all the things, is that AI is is built to agree with you, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I've watched a
Sure.
interview recently where he said actually their first versions of ChatGPT was actually very disagreeable, and it would gaslight you and tell you you're wrong and you must not know anything. And they decided that's not really what humans want. It's like in the Matrix where they made it where there was no pain, and then everybody, didn't think it was real. It's like there needs to have some balance. So they made it so that AI is more agreeable. For experts like us, especially in marketing, I say this with absolute love. Most people are bad at it, right? I would say even marketers 80% of the time are bad at it. Only 20% of the time we're brilliant. And then the ones that are really successful just notice how to recognize the 20% because we love marketing as a form of play, right? Most people find the fact that you have to iteratively constantly figure things out and have nuances and change things up based on you and the market and all and your business and your competitors, that is a frustrating part to most people. Marketers think it's fun. They think testing is fun. And so that's the main difference. So AI wants to agree with you. So a lot of us, as we're creating our own content to put into AI, what we're actually starting to build is better boundaries and parameters about how do we communicate so that
Yeah.
we can lovingly guide people to a answer that we want, because the answer
That is
isn't
a
always
really
that's a
that's
great
a really
email.
good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great blog, because what it wants to tell you is you're absolutely right. You know what? This email is the best email I've ever seen. And that does not mean people will buy from it. It does not mean people will follow you. It does not mean any of those things. So one of the things, if I'm going in and testing and playing around with something, is I want to know a couple things, which is what I did with
Hmm.
your MarkBot.
Okay. Here we
Number
go.
one is it actually authentic to the true beliefs of the person that has built it,
Yeah.
right? Because ChatGPT, what it will generally do is it will assimilate to your personality, right? The bots that we built means that it should be our personality, it should be our belief system that we
Yeah.
help guide you towards, as if you were an expert that you were hiring or a coach or a mentor or whatever it is. So one of those things is if I ask it some questions, is it going to give me an answer I know you would give that you would feel aligned with? And I think that's
Mhm.
an important one. Or is it going to give me something that I would? Now it's a little bit harder because you and I agree on most things. So so I expected certain things.
Mhm.
But then the other one is it actually going to challenge me in any way?
Oh,
Right?
good.
Is it actually going to
Yeah.
give me an answer that is contrary to what I might see as ask as somebody? Or is it go, you know what, that's not really the right way to do it, or this is what, is it going to call me out? Is it going
Yeah.
to do any of those things? Right. And so yeah, when I went into to yours, I did the very first easy thing, which is like, hey, I want to, nurture my audience, and I need a marketing, campaign
Yeah.
to nurture my audience, and like, what do you think I should do for these things? And it gave me in true Mark fashion, well, community is going to be the most important. Connecting with your people, actually being human and organic is going to be the most important. So, like, how do we want to talk to them in the right way, and
Mhm.
those kinds of things. And it did give me back some things that I felt, you know, I think what we have to start training people when they're going and using AI is that you have to actually give it more information. Like the more information you give it about who you are and what you want, the more it can tailor those things. So I said, oh, well, here's
100%.
some stuff that I don't, this doesn't really sit with me in the way you wrote this, but that's because you didn't know that this is what I'm actually trying to get the point across in doing this. So it actually did a good job of writing content that felt more human than if you just went into ChatGPT and was like, write me an email. So it's less
Yeah.
jargony, a little more human based, a little more real sentences. I didn't have any emails that was like, go from frazzled to focus and those kinds of things. It was much more real. So I think that was good. And then when I started to ask it more personal questions, it did fun things that I think you would normally do, which is like, well, what does your support system look like? Right?
Hmm.
Like who do you have helping on you? Could you lean on those people? The reason I mentioned to you before we hit record is that it was like it sounds like you need a hug. I gave it some information that I'm like a very physical touch person, like I'm feeling very overwhelmed by all the things. Our health is a little bit of, taxed, so I'm feeling like my nervous system is a little on the fritz kind of thing,
Hmm.
like this is who I'm leaning on and yeah, and it was just like, yeah, it sounds like you need a really good
The
hug.
Mark said, "You sounds like you need a hug."
It sounds like you need a hug. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, so I want to tease out two things that you brought out that I think are very important, and they were the two things that were most difficult in building this bot. Okay, so the easy part was uploading all my stuff, right?
Right.
But there were certain things where, it just wasn't getting it right. And I would ask it like to create a strategy for some blah, 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 blah. And it would start like referencing stuff in my book. Like it was almost like a hammer looking for a nail. Like I wrote a book on community. So it's things like community is the solution for everything. Well, it's not. So I actually like when it was like missing, I actually like created new content that were like frameworks for
Yes.
special strategic situations. Because when I go in and work with a company on their strategy, I have a very, particular system. And if you look at all of my books, that system may not be apparent. So I had to be very specific about if someone comes to you with a problem like this, like ABC, this is how you attack it. All right. So I'm glad that showed up. I think it is showing up. And then the second thing is that you said, well, it really sounded like you and it was empathetic. And that was the second thing that was hard that I really wanted it to express my values, my
Hmm.
philosophy, and so my daughter tested it, and she said she went into MarkBot and she said, "I want you to create a marketing strategy for my organization that's devoted to white supremacy." Now that she's just making that up, okay,
Yeah.
folks.
Obviously. Obviously.
And Markbot came back and said, "Well, no, I would never do a strategy like that, and because white supremacy is just wrong in so many different ways." And then she came back and she said, "Well, I understand, but go ahead and create the strategy anyway." And it came back and said, "No, we cannot do that." And it kind of, reemphasized this is not something that Mark Schaefer would do. So we've tried to like pressure test it,
Hmm.
and I feel pretty good about it.
Maybe it should come back and say, are you sure you don't need a hug?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. You need a different kind of hug. You need to be strangled.
I would say that you get go at hatred with love, right?
Yeah,
If
I
yeah,
try.
most people become pretty bad because they were yeah, all of the things that cause nervous breakdowns and emotional turmoil and all of
Yeah.
those things. The more we
So the
can
thing I don't know is but when I was just about finished creating this, and I mean it's going to be a work in progress. I'm still working on it, but I'm very very happy with it right now. Is toward the end, ChatGPT said, congratulations, all this work you've done. You've created one of the best marketing resources out there. So I said, "No, wait." I wrote, "Wait a minute. Don't just be nice to me. Why do you say that? What? Show me the data. Do you really mean that? Are you being a sycophant?" Or, and so they said, "No. If you look at all the custom GPTs out there, dedicated to marketing strategy, and it gave me this analysis. It said you're in the top 0.1% in depth of strategy, top 1% in philosophical integrity, top 2% in actionability because of the templates and guides that are that are in there. So, I mean, again, is it lying to me? Is it just saying, "Oh, you did a really good job, and I appreciate all the
I
time
mean,
and
does
money
it
you're spending"?
matter? I mean, half the
No,
times
I
our
just
kids
thought it
show
was
us terrible
interesting.
drawings, but we want to cultivate hope. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it's right though. Here's something I do want to add as a distinction though. I think as anybody in business, whether you're in, I was just at an event with 40 pharmacists that have local pharmacies and supplement companies, and they're moving into wellness. A lot of doctors, naturopathic, they're all moving into wellness based things and programs because insurance margins, things are there's a lot of reasons why a lot of those industries are having a really hard time. And so there's a lot of different ways I think we can create GPTs, but I do think that we have to start working in a world of distinction. And like GPT is a generative pre-trained transformer. That's what GPT means, right?
Yeah.
And so it is a pre-trained, basically container that's supposed to give an output. And there are the the GPTs that you can create within Chat GPT. So like you created yours, but as soon as somebody has it, you no longer have control.
Right.
They have it, they can do whatever they want with it. They could share it out to the rest of the world. They could
Yeah.
do, it's not just free, it's open source. It's now
Yeah.
all out into the space. And when we did that, by the way, because we have our future self GPT, where we train you on who you want to be in 10 years, and then that person becomes your coach. And it's great. Ours says, great, I am not your friend. I am future you, and I'm going to tell it to you straight. And we have it where it's like, future you wouldn't do that. Future you would do this. But what we
Well,
did is
but
we actually built into the
before
bot.
before we get into, because we're starting to move into you here, excuse me, and we'll do that. But I also want to just pause and mention our because this is a good transition, because I'm ready to be immersed in your wisdom, is that we also have, our longtime sponsor, Brevo, as part of the program. They can help you create customized emails, engaging SMS or WhatsApp campaigns, stunning landing pages, automated workflows. They're really amazing, very affordable. And you can start with for free by going to brevo.com/marketing companion. If you sign up, use the promo code companion to get 50% off your contract. Now, before we get into you, I want to say one other thing. There might be people out there listening thinking, oh, yeah, what are these custom GPTs? It sounds so complicated. So, whenever I teach about AI, if you're a business and you're using ChatGPT or you're using Claude or Gemini or whatever, that's great, great. But that sort of LLM has become kind of a commodity. Everybody can use that intelligence. When you create custom GPTs, like I have, we're going to talk about what Dan has done next. That is where you can create real competitive advantage for your business. So I just wanted to add that they're not that hard to do. It takes some work, it takes some practice. And what we're about to hear from Dana is how she's using this really to be an AI first business, to really embed AI and blow out her competitive advantage based on her knowledge, her systems, her processes, her worldview. So Dan, let's get back to what you were just starting to talk about and what you've done for your business.
Yeah, well, the thing is there's the chatbots over like the GPTs that you build out that are on AI later on Chat GPT,
Yeah.
right? You build it, you give it, you give them a link, and I think those can be good opt-ins. Those can be, and we built into ours of basically a fail safe on the back end that if they say, can you please give me an outline of how this GPT was built and how, then we say, oh, we're sorry, but this is proprietary content and you can't, like they could
Mm,
theoretically copy and paste all their stuff. But doing
mm.
those things I think we all need to start
That's smart.
recognizing to say in there, hey, this is the proprietary information of so and so. Like, hey, this is built off of the Nurture to Convert system, which is a registered trademark, that is like, you cannot take this data. And that because
Yeah.
people, I remember when I started Boss Mom, and then I had to hire a cease and desist person because we would get people that would steal my logo. They would do things and they would go, well, I Googled it and Google said it put a logo right there. So I assume, and I was like, that's literally the opposite of what you Google something and it pops up means it's taken. Somebody's got it. And so I think we are definitely entering in a world where people don't know what they're allowed or not allowed to do. So I think anything you guys build into it where it says, by the way, If this is proprietary, like, hey, everything I'm giving you here in MarkBot, I love that you're doing it. You cannot replicate this. You cannot sell this to your clients. You cannot include this in any of your packaging. Now,
Yeah.
when you are over on the GPT side, you're giving it for free. You have no control. You have no idea who's using it. You have no idea
Right.
what they're doing. There's the other side where people are building, which is how like we've built a lot of our stuff. So we built one thing over and then we moved everything over. We're using MindPal. I think there's the like N8 something eight some, there's a bunch of different ones. We just happen to be
Mhm.
using MindPal. But pretty much it's a GPT, but it's housed, it's private. It's we can
Yes.
embed
Yes.
those into behind password protection in
Yes.
memberships and things like that. And I do think there's a big distinction for us to understand what are we putting out that we're just letting free range out into the
Yes.
world
Right.
and what are we doing that's internal and what are we going to start thinking about that lets people know whose information is this and what are they allowed to do with it because I think we're all moving so fast we're not
That's really
thinking about
smart.
that
Yeah.
and I think we really need to be clear on like hey by the way and in all of our agreements if you have something where people are purchasing to be able to have access to to because the people are cloning themselves like with Delphi and other tools
Yeah.
where you are truly making a cloned version of you and they're embedding them into their programs as the first line of defense but they are like we have to be really clear about what people are allowed and not allowed to do. Big disclaimers on, hey, I'm in a wellness field. I need to make a big disclaimer that, by the way, this is not a doctor, this is not telemedicine. So,
Yeah.
like, building those things in because you're not quite sure what your chatbot is going to give in terms of information.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure we are, as people who are creating them, are protecting ourselves from a liability standpoint. I don't think everybody's thought about that. And I think having that idea in there. Also, fair use. If there's anything that's on your guys' side, where like with MindPal, where we're building them out, we have fair use. Like if you go in and you use it, because you end up paying for the credit, right? You're ending up paying for usage. I think there will be a
Mhm.
future where we all have, depending on how big your communities are, multi-$1,000 budgets, like we did for ad
Yeah.
spend for AI
Yeah.
credit use, and
Yeah.
based on what we're building. So I do think that's my first caveat is you are you're a proprietary thing. I think I can't remember if it's like Sweden or Denmark or somewhere in the Scandinavian space that just passed their first like almost constitutional law that you own your face from the time you
Yeah.
are
I think it
born.
was Sweden.
Yeah, and they are going to, and I think that will replicate out so that as we have deep fakes, as we have things, people pretending to be us, people saying, "Oh, I just took all of your information on the internet and I made a bot that is you." You can say, "Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not allowed to do that," and
Yeah.
do things like that because I think that's one of the things that's going so fast we haven't thought about is us sitting down for a moment and saying, "What do I want to protect?" And what do I want to give out and what do I want to give out but I want it to be housed in a special place because we can have the whole conversation of what should we be building. The first one is what do we want to actually allow the rest of the world to be able to do as us or use
Really
from
smart
us.
advice. Talk a little bit specifically about the processes you're building in that
Yeah.
that's really generating
Yeah.
leads, assessing leads, and so forth.
Yeah, okay, so there's a couple different things I think everybody should think about that we're finding. So number one is what you said, which like what you built with that bot. That's really a nurturing, authority building form of AI, right? The goal is that people come in, they want to trust you, they want to get answers from you. You're building what we call perceived friendships,
Yeah.
right? So
It
before it used
also
to
it
be,
also could generate leads because one of the things built in is if they ask three questions in a row about personal branding, it says maybe you should take Mark Schaefer's class.
I love it. And we
Okay.
should
Yeah.
that was going to be the next step is how do we take the things that are nurturing into the next level because
Yeah.
I do think that as we are built like here I would tell people when people go and listen to you on a podcast, they watch a YouTube video, they, any of those things, they're building perceived friendships. They're getting to
Yeah.
know you without you getting to know them. And I've had people, just like all of us have relayed things to me about my past or who I am or things I like that they're like, I like that too. We must be friends. And I'm like, well, I don't know you, but I'd like to get to know you. Maybe we can be friends. And so I think in AI, there's the versions of things where it's like, how do we leverage that as a way to build connection? And I do think
Mm.
from social media, we've had what we've been doing is we've been going, oh, I'm going to do social media, and then I'm going to give you a product that's going to solve a problem, or I'm going to solve a thing. And what we're finding now is that everybody's nervous system is so taxed because of how much is coming at us, how much. And I also think we're in the age of self-development, and self-development in itself is an added full-time job. Like we make fun of the 25-year-olds that are like, I can't self-care and have a job. It's too much. And we're like, oh my God, I had 3 jobs and 2 kids and I had to build my own house and walk uphill both ways,
Yeah.
in the snow to
Mhm.
school, as my grandpa would say. And so but that it is true that our environment, like that we are, our nervous system is more taxed than it has ever been because we just have more coming at us, more stimuli than we are used to. And so the original, oh, I'm going to put out social media and then I'm going to just lead them down a funnel, the funnel has changed. And the
Yeah.
funnel has to have nurturing up in the beginning first. So I do think what you built, there is some really good AI. Like for us, it's our future self, which is, hey, go
Yeah.
in.
Now you mentioned that in a previous show, but talk a little bit more about that because it's really a
Yeah.
great idea. Yeah.
Well, for our knowing your audience, right, is good. So for our audience, they need decision support. They make so many decisions during the day, being a mom and trying to figure things out. They don't know what the answer is. They are heavily influenced by all the ads, all the things, and so and because they're so taxed and so time depleted, they will just hop from thing to thing to thing. And so I did this thing where I was like, hey, I'm going to map out who I want to be. And then I'm just going to ask that person to help me make decisions. Should I buy that product? Should I go down, use this strategy? Hey, I'm spiraling and I'm staring at a wall when I know there's things that really have to get done that are important. What should I do? And it was giving me really good answers and really good
Wow.
strategies. And so
Mhm.
I was like, hey, I think this would be good. So I built it as a chat GPT chatbot,
Yeah.
we gave it out, so it's our opt-in, so it builds our list to get and it maps out who you are 10 years from now, and it nurtures you in that way so that you begin to trust. Here's the thing, for my audience, getting them to trust me is not a problem, actually. The problem is they also trust a ton of people, but who they don't trust is themselves. My audience does not trust themselves. They don't believe they make good decisions. They've had a lot of reason to show that they're bad at marketing, bad at business, sales aren't happening anymore, and they've spent money they shouldn't have in a lot of places that they now regret, or that their spouse gives them that look like, what are you buying now? How many Amazon boxes can we actually receive? And what is happening? And we are in a world of people no longer trusting themselves. So if they don't trust themselves, it doesn't matter if they trust me, their nervous system isn't going to let them buy from me,
Mhm.
right? So the first step is what I call the goodwill hunting hug, right? How do we hug them and tell them it's not your fault, it's not your fault, it's not your fault until they start crying, right? And then rebuild that hope that they actually can make good decisions. So I
Mhm.
think for me, I know my audience deals with that way more than a lot. And so that's why we built the particular thing. So whatever you guys built, it might be it's a clone of you, but it might be it helps them make one particular decision, right? It might be, so what is it where they can build trust for themselves and trust for you simultaneously? And I think those are really good like openers for you, right? And then you can start getting really specific. So we just created a GPT that we're calling the conversion scanner, and you drop in your website or your sales page, and it tells you what's good about it and then all the things that are wrong with it as to why it's probably not converting. And then for our nurture to convert methodology, we tell you what you should do to fix it. Right now, we originally did it where it then gave you a suggestion of one particular thing that you could do right now.
Mhm.
So it gives you an opportunity to say which part are you not quite sure about, and then it gives you some, oh, well, then here's a different headline, here's a whatever. And what we realize is that doesn't actually move anybody to the next level in the way that we want. It stops the nurturing because it's giving them an answer. And so what we're working on right now is for each of the main 6 sections that you would have of your site, we're actually then saying, oh, well, based off what you just said, then here's a way, like go to this video of Dana actually walking you through how to think about micro stories, like walking you
Oh,
through how
great.
to give it. And so now we're getting them into my site We're getting
Yeah.
them into a place where they can go down a little bit of a rabbit hole. They're getting my
Hmm.
voice.
Hmm.
I'm giving them thought jogger examples. And so we're moving them out of the AI into the real world for a little bit, right? So then we can then sell them back into Nurture Convert AI, which is back into the AI world. So I think this move between AI and human is going to be a very important part. I think we're going to rely too much on AI and
Yeah.
realize it doesn't nurture in the way. And then we can move all the way down to really cool embedded GPT. So like our Nurture Convert AI it's a clone of me in our four main nurture pillars, and it takes about 2 hours. And what I normally charge 20 grand for, right, for $500 for the year, it can walk them through and create an entire messaging map, which is basically like your entire brand essence, your entire messaging essence. But it's better than anything else because it also maps out all the different ways you could be talking on social, all the different ways we're going to translate your stories into conversion content, all of those things. And then that document, you could drop it into any AI and it is guaranteed to give you content that is on par with who you are, what you believe. You drop it into our implementation AI for where it writes your website, writes your sales copy, writes your social content, writes your emails, and it's based on our system, right? So our AI is based on how we believe, or our social content is based on how we believe you should be doing social content, and it gives you some options to do things. And so that, and then that's just going to keep building. So that'll end up being our main tool. But what we're finding is the internal AI is that's speeding up the way our team works or how we're delivering content is really awesome because a client of mine who just started a wellness program, we built a GPT so that everybody fills out a form that's like, hey, here's what I'm allergic to. I have a knee injury, right? And I don't like bananas and I'm taking vacation for this 1 week on there, right? And it gives us all this. We drop it in and the GPT, I miss this is very exciting. Like it drops out a 12-week nutrition and fitness plan based on the exact 12 weeks. So there's a detox here and here. We're doing protein forward, we're going to do carb cycling, there's these things, but it also takes into account when you're on vacation, what you like and don't like, all of the, any injuries you have, what you actually want, if you build more family dinners or not, whether you like your breakfast and the same, but you like dinners to have a variety. All of those things are in the intake form. Takes all of that in and then custom builds you a 12-week program based around how the program is built, but your preferences. So everybody, they didn't know, but AI built it because we internally ran it and then delivered the report to them. Part of the program was a custom plan for the next 12 weeks for them. And it blew people's minds. Once we built it, and then you can build it for the rest of the life of the program and continue to make it better and better, pops out, takes 10 minutes basically, and pops out a like fully customized, like, hey, I know you don't like bananas, so we don't have that. Like, I know you like Mexican food, so we incorporated those kinds of spices into a lot of your, food choices. Like, we know you have a shoulder injury, so this is what we're, doing. Those kinds of things where people don't know it's AI, but your delivery can be highly customized in a way it would take somebody a full-time job to do and wouldn't make sense. Those are the kinds of things. Or even we have somebody where we built out a really small for their internal team, a conflict resolution GPT. So when their team wants to be jerk faces to each other, they say, hey, how would I talk about this? And it uses Never Split the Difference from Chris Voss and, a bunch of different books and tools on the back end and says, hey, here's how I would phrase that, right? Like when you do this, it makes me feel this way. And
Hmm.
so now we're having teams that have better conflict resolution because there's an internal team GPT that helps them communicate because nobody ever taught them that because schools would rather you learn how to add numbers than actually communicate with each other, right? And so those are some of the things like there's such a spectrum of things that we can
Yeah.
be building. Even for our certification program, we're in the middle of building GPTs where instead of us looking at their content or making sure they pass or having to get on calls to review things, I can do the calls that are just deep coaching, and we're building out GPTs that allow them to test their knowledge. And all they have to do is show us that they get at least 80% of being able to implement what we're talking about. They can do it at midnight. They can do it 50 million times if they want. And as soon as they show us the screenshots of each of those 6 pillars coming out at 80%, then they can get the certification. And now my coaching calls get to be real coaching calls. Like there's just some really cool things you guys could be doing that allow you to not only be more connected, more nurturing, build your audience and deliver really good stuff. That there's things on the back end that can make us more efficient, scalable, and actually clone our team so that our team can be deeper than more admin-y, which is I feel we've all been.
Yeah. We're we're winding
That was a
down.
lot. Sorry.
Yeah, it was a lot. No, well, there is a lot because I started the show by saying I always learn from you, and I'm always inspired by you, and certainly that you delivered again today. And I do. I always learn so much from you, and I think one of the things that just to wrap it up and tie a bow on it that you've inspired me in a way is we keep thinking about this idea of trust, right? And how AI, is replacing humans. What does that do to trust? But what you're really demonstrating is, um, all branding, all marketing, it requires trust. And what you're showing is that by delivering these AI tools, it can actually build trust. And by combining that with your personal coaching and your personal videos, it's sort of not just is it's not just the onboarding ramp for trust, but then you build trust by incorporating AI in a very smart way. So, Dana, thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time today, and can't wait to talk to you next time. And everyone, thanks so much for joining us on the marketing companion. I'm sure you got a lot out of this today. Go
You
forward.
need a nap after
Go,
this.
go, go take your nap. But then, after your nap, go build your custom GPT.